Are the Huskers 1-0 or are they 0-1? Yeah, it's a bad joke, but here we are after the spring game, and there's much to evaluate in looking at Nebraska football with a brand new shiny quarterback that everybody's excited about, of course. And we got Justin Adams, of course, here on our 171st edition of Huskers Live. Justin, what's going on tonight?
Not a whole lot. Finally have football to talk about. We had players performing on the field. We finally got a taste of Dylan Raiola. A lot of observations to take away, a lot of good, some bad, but overall feeling pretty good about everything that went down. So I'm feeling good.
Folks, leave those comments and questions in the chat. We've got some questions for you. So listen up, everyone. We do have some questions for you to provide us a little feedback as we continue the conversation, of course. And as Justin says, hey, there's football to talk about. And you can catch, of course, Justin right here on our Huskers show each and every Tuesday and throughout the week with content postings here. And then, of course, on the Big Ten show, check out the channel with Justin and Sonny. It's right here on YouTube, the Big Ten show.
Yep. Probably a Nebraska program overview is going to be our next installment. So, yep, get over there, get ready for that.
Yeah, get over there, get ready for that. But we should probably also grab that link and post it over here.
Yeah, I should probably
can put that in the community page for everyone to make it easy.
I'm so
got to make it easy for these people. Like one click. If we give them 3 clicks, that's too much work. Much work.
I'm terrible with self-promotion. So half the times I forget to even plug the channel.
I am the same way. Now, John D'Adamo over on the Michigan channel, he is the master of promotion for the channel. So I appreciate that. But I expect you guys to promote, but I am the worst at it. So I'm a bad example. You know, I'll do 2.5-hour shows and I'll get done and think I didn't promote anything.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
So we need to do that. But we also, I got to say, the Dylan Raiola performance, and we'll start there, was even impressive to the point that as I was gathering intel across the nation about other spring games and other quarterback battles or other young quarterbacks who were being evaluated, I would see Dylan Raiola's name come up like, well, our young quarterback is supposed to be really good. He's supposed to be battling for the job. He didn't look like Dylan Raiola. He didn't show that. So with everything that he delivered at Memorial Stadium on Saturday, what impressed you the most?
I think just his poise. He looked like a guy who has a full season or two under his belt out there with his overall command, just the way, he was calm, relaxed in the pocket just from the jump. You can tell that he trusts his ability and he trusts what he knows about this offense. And even in a 14 practices, what he knows about this offense and some of the game plans they've implemented, some of the things that they've worked on, throwing him in the fire. It just seemed everything came really easy for him in comparison. And, you just look at the mechanics and the way, people, posted video of him making that deep throw. If you look at just the way that ball is just a flick of the wrist for him, right? And that's all mechanical. It's all just stemming from his lower body, bringing the shoulder through and just kind of being able to swing it, but also just keeping everything tight and fundamental. So that way those throws are right on the money, most every single time. And even the throws that were off, I won't speak of the account in question here, but there is a account on Twitter that posted a video of his incompletions, his 7 incompletions. And if you look at most of those were essentially the defender being underneath the route and him throwing it to where his receiver could get it at the back of the end zone, or it's going to be incomplete. So he sailed a couple of them. Another one was the back of the end zone. The receiver didn't adjust in time, but he could have caught it. And so, but there was one bad throw. And then one of them was, he threw it a little bit to the back shoulder of the receiver and the receiver tipped the ball in the air and it was intercepted off of the tip. And, that one is just like a slight little thing. So his poise in the pocket, the way his energy was. And now Matt Rule had spoken about this previously, I think it was either last week or the week before, or one of the coaches did, essentially about they are working with Raiola on keeping his energy up because everybody feeds off of his natural energy out there. That's just the type of player he is. And we saw him interacting and doing handshakes with the guys, after they score a touchdown. You could tell the energy was there, the camaraderie is there, and then it's we were able to see a guy who's supposed to have growing pains go out there and throw the rock like this was his third spring game. And that was very telling because that's the biggest thing we want to see. You're going out there against a defense that didn't have the normal front, defensive line. So you have to take that account. And then also, a lot of defensive players get rotated through. But that still, in many cases of spring games, freshman quarterback don't look like that, and so it's one of those things that you can't discount it, but it's tempered. You got to have tempered expectations, but what we saw should have everybody, extremely excited and kind of maybe a little bit more confident than we even were before.
So had we had a disappointing season or spring game out of Dylan Raiola, we would hear the backlash and we would hear a number of people, not everyone, a lot of people would be measured and say, hey, not a huge deal. It's only 1 out of 15. But I certainly can think of some other cases. Justin Fields comes to mind. He had a 3 for 15 spring game at Ohio State, and people were jumping off bridges left and right. And the guy threw 41 touchdowns with 3 picks that year. So relax.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's just nice to get that confirmation that what we expected him to be. Now he's going to continue to learn and have growing pains and face adversity and work through things and all of that. He's not going to be super, super consistent, but it is nice to see, okay, well, he looks the part already, and here he is.
Yeah. And that's what people don't understand because, people are like, it's a spring game. We can't tell much from that and all this other stuff. But if you understand the nuances of the game and in the game within the game, there are things that you can look for in your quarterback to know if he's going to be ready or if you think he's going to be ready or if he is currently ready. And a lot of that has to do with the calm and composure, understanding and reading defenses, being able to, whenever the pressure's in your face, thrown off your back foot, being able to deliver a good ball or knowing when not to deliver that ball and get out of bounds. There's decision-making, there's football acumen, football IQ, there's body language. All of that stuff was very, very, it didn't seem like a true freshman. It didn't seem like an 18-year-old kid. And so those are the things that give you confidence because those are the things on the field that are going to translate. Him knowing his ability and being confident in this offense and being comfortable in this offense and trusting his ability. And you saw all of the quarterbacks had calm feet. They were very poised in the pocket. And so that's something that we can take away from this. Now, the stat lines, okay, of course, we're not going to sit there and just all over the stat line. What we should do, though, is look for those small details, like wide receivers. Are the wide receivers better in their route running? Are they creating separation? There's game within the game that people could pay attention to.
Absolutely. And as you can see on the banner there, folks, we would love to hear from you. Get your evaluation because this is just the one time between late November of last season and all the way to the final Saturday of August that we get a look at this football team start to finish. Sure, video clips are out there, particular plays and practice and all of that, but start to finish. So we would love to hear from you because we know we've got a dedicated bunch of Husker fans to get your take. So leave your takes, good or bad, questions involving what you saw on Saturday, and we will read through those as we go through the hour here.
Absolutely.
So if you had to name a couple other players that you thought, okay, this is, was an opportunity for them to shine. They came through. They showed me something. I'm happy to see that this person's made progress. Who would be those guys?
So there was actually quite a few of those guys. Jalen Lloyd went for 97 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Lloyd, of course, a burner last season, deep ball threat. But what he really has gotten better at is he's gotten a lot better at what I talked about earlier, just route running, creating separation, be able to not only be a deep ball threat, but be able to expand his skill set and set up those explosive plays. The Jalen Lloyd is going to be a huge, huge part of this offense. So, of course, but he was one of those guys we expected to kind of have a big game. Ja'Cory Barney showed his explosiveness in many ways. You know, he was all over the field, had a 78-yard kick return, which would have been a touchdown return, but the kicker was in a gray jersey and he was in a white jersey. And so he didn't realize the kicker. It was pretty funny. He didn't realize the kicker was on the other team. And so he just ran right into him, got tackled. So it would have been a touchdown had he avoided the kicker. But yes, but then a couple of just mistakes in the end zone, but you will take that trade-off. You know, it's a guy who is explosive and he could run the ball back for 100 yards, but he's got to get better at learning when to let it go back in the end zone, when to take it out, when not, little things like that. That'll come in time. I would say probably the biggest, I don't know, the guy that stood out to me the most, Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, not Ja'Cory Barney. I'm sorry, Janair Bonner. You know, at wideout, former, play tight end, play fullback. We talked about him last week, how Matt Rule had mentioned that he's an NFL fullback. And I was talking about that kind of speaks to his attention to the details of, he wants to do the things, the dirty work. He wants to learn to block. He wants to set the edge on the outside. And not only that, he's a tremendous wideout. And so Janarian Bonner is going to be a big part of this team. And I think a lot of people might be underrating his how he's going to look out there. But I have seen more and more people jumping on board with Bonner. And then, Emmett Johnson for me. Emmett Johnson is probably my favorite player on this team. A lot of people saw Dowdle go out there, 76 yards on 7 carries and 2 touchdowns. However, Emmett Johnson is the guy. And that showed out there in just his ability to win at the line of scrimmage in any way possible. He runs hard, he runs physical, but he also is quick and agile and knows how to beat somebody at the line of scrimmage with his jump cuts, and his ability to operate in a small space. And also his mind. Dowdle he's good, right? He's going to be really good, and he's going to be a big part of this offense too. Probably, running back 2 or 3 with, but Gabe Irvin's going to be up there as well. But I think Emmett Johnson's the guy. And I think the coaches and everybody has alluded to that being the case in the way they speak about him. And so, Emmett Johnson, I know other people said that they think Dowdle will be the starter. I disagree. I think Emmett Johnson's the guy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then I'll save the most improved for last, and that was Heinrich Haarberg. And, Heinrich Haarberg last year was kind of one of those guys who was drop back, I'm going to make a read and I'm out, or drop back, pressure coming, I'm out. And it was less, more so about him making the best play in terms of the football play, right? Trying to get whatever yards he could, not really going through the progressions, not having, the technique down to be able to consistently complete, passes. He had that front shoulder flying open. So all of his deep balls were just kind of sailing, or getting pulled out, like pulled to the right, or, so a lot of mechanical things, but it was very, very evident. And for anybody who had any hesitations about the hire of Glenn Thomas, that looked like a different quarterback throwing the ball out there. He was calm in the pocket. He was poised. He took what the defense gave him when it was there, and he set up the deep ball for himself. And so what he showed there was a huge improvement, and he showed that he's probably going to be the quarterback 2 on this team. He's probably going to beat out Kalen. A lot of people with Kalen, are being a little hard on him. But with Kalen, all he did was go out there and make true freshman mistakes. And that's what you expect from a true freshman. But he got better as the game progressed. And that's the biggest thing, right? As the game goes along, does he get rattled? Does he start overthinking this? I made a couple of bad throws, and he gets real tight. but he didn't. He played loose. He played relaxed. He loosened up as the game went along, and he got better as it went along.
This is LFG's signature move. I love it. Every time he gets in the chat, he lets us know I'm like number 1, I'm like number 13, I'm like number 37. So, you know what that reminds everyone? To hit the like button. LFG's number 2. You can be number 4, number 8, number 15, whatever it is, but it just reminds everyone. So I love that move by LFG. That's his signature move, but LFG brings more than that. Always excellent football analysis out of LFG. So what's he got here concerning Raiola is situational awareness, pre-snap processing remains calm, can throw the deep out
Yeah,
to the opposite sideline, which of course is an
arm strength.
NFL mark of a quarterback who's on his way.
Yes, a lot of people making the comparison just in the way he throws the ball and the way he operates out there and just the way he carries himself and his ability to change arm slots and on arm angles. A lot of people say he looks, and I hate saying this stuff because people are like, "Oh, you're saying he's going to be him." No, he looks like a Patrick Mahomes, right? And when you say that, like a guy can look like Mahomes in terms of his mannerisms, his mechanics, especially when they worked with the same quarterback coach. You probably expect, and he said he was going out to work with Mahomes' other quarterback coach after the spring game. And so when you say that stuff, people just kind of freak out at the name. But in the way he carried himself and his poise and composure and the way he, went around and kind of lifted his teammates up, and stuff like that. That's a lot of what you see from Patrick Mahomes, and just the way he throws the ball. It's just very similar in his mechanics and his arm slots. Like all of it is a very, very similar operation, which we're not saying he's going to be that. But also Patrick Mahomes wasn't that in college. So take that for what it's worth at Texas Tech. But yeah, just a very calm, composed guy out there. And you can tell he's worked with some of these guys that have experience and some of these guys that just know how to get this stuff down to muscle memory. And that's what it comes down to. The reason he looks so calm, composed, he trusts his mechanics. So he's not tight. Like he's not like sitting there like, keeping his shoulder and everything tight. You need to be able to unlock that shoulder, open that up, and be able to just trust your mechanics to get the ball there. When you start thinking about it, you start pushing the ball, or you start using your arm too much, you start using your elbow too much. That's when the throws, you short arm them, or you throw them a little right. So he trusts his mechanics, and I think that is the biggest things. And like he said, he trusts his pre-snap processing, and that's something they worked on. His ability to read the play before the snap, and then also be able to see what potentially that coverage was disguised as and rotating to.
I was doing some review concerning Michigan and their quarterback situation coming up. Also, obviously connected to JJ McCarthy's performance last year and then his draft status this year as a top 5 pick. So I'll mention this real quick and then I'll connect the Nebraska numbers to it, because I was reminded as I was looking at this today, preparing for Michigan podcast, Steve Dace. I'm on there, so give it a look. But it was just funny that this has to be the first time in the history of the NFL where a quarterback's taken in the top 5 in the draft, and Michigan threw the ball. They were number 122 in the country in pass attempts per game. That just doesn't happen where a guy is that well thought of, and they
Yep.
didn't let him throw the ball much.
Exactly.
So while I'm looking at that today, I'm reminded, okay, Nebraska's right there too. They were like 130.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it even more odd for Nebraska was, well, Michigan was undefeated. So they're leading almost all those games wire to wire. Nebraska didn't get blown out. So they were not one of those teams that had to throw because, oh, they're down by 21 constantly in the fourth quarter. They're playing
Right.
competitive games almost every week, but still, they were usually in a situation where their last drive, at least, or a couple drives, they had to throw the football, and still were number 130 in the nation in pass attempts. So, realistically speaking, with the weapons they have, you mentioned Jalen Lloyd and others, Jamal Banks coming in from Wake. Isaiah Nair. If Raiola develops to a reasonable point, we're not going to put too much on him like he's going to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Where do you think Matt Rule and Marcus Satterfield would like to be with this offense in regards to a pass run ratio?
Yeah, I would probably, man, I put that probably extremely balanced, maybe 60-40 pass lean, maybe 65-35. But I do think it all depends, I think, on how they use this stable of running backs, because we saw a lot of stuff, stuff, RPO stuff and stuff being thrown at and behind the line of scrimmage to the wideouts or to the running backs and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be very, very dependent on how they rotate those running backs, because if we have a guy like Ramir out there more, then we're going to probably be throwing the ball to running backs a lot more and using that almost as kind of like a, inversion of the run game, a la Dana Holgerson, that, but it's not a West Coast offense where you're or a run and shoot where you're using the short pass game to necessarily set that up. But that's how it kind of operates when you have some of these backs that are designed to really, and Ramir's really good, but they're the shiftier backs that you can get out in space. And we saw a lot of throws to the running backs out there, even Dowdle getting in on the action. But I think what they want to do is probably like 60-40 run pass, and really use that run game situationally to set the pass up. And I think it's just a matter of, we have a stable of running backs that is very, very deep. And so it may incentivize them and very much depending on whether Nebraska gets the lead or a lot or not, to be able to extend drives and be able, because at the same time, this offense wants to milk clock and huddle up and really get the drive, like really sustain a drive and get their defense rest and stuff like that. So in a perfect world, I think it'll be probably 60-40. You look at Baylor, for instance, and their yardage ratio was about 265, I think, through the air to about 160 over there. So, and it was very, very balanced in terms of the ratio. I think it was like, I can't remember actually off the top of my head. I looked it up before. So 60-40 is probably perfect. And hopefully, it's a lot of that's playing with the lead, so Nebraska can end up leaning on the run game more, and hopefully it's a little more balanced. So
LFG, I believe, with another astute comment, and we're taking comments and questions concerning what you guys saw on Saturday. So just leave your comments and questions in the chat concerning anything, of course,
yeah,
but specifically about Saturday's performance and what you took away from it.
or
But
negatives. Yeah.
LFG comes in with this one, Justin, and this is the formula that you want to see this year. As Nebraska, as you want to see that jump from 5-7 to, let's say, 8-4.
Yeah.
They're not, let's face it, folks, it's the Big Ten. They're not going to be out there beating teams 42-10. But if this happens most of the time in these close, tight games where Nebraska's got a 24-20 lead and they got the ball with 4 minutes left at their own 35-yard line and they need to close it out, that's a good formula right there.
Yep. Exactly. And that's what, I mean, let's be honest. When Nebraska hasn't had the ability to, it's one of those things. I think about it this way, right? When Nebraska is in a situation in any game the last few years, it feels like as soon as Nebraska relinquishes the lead, it's over, right? Because the offense doesn't have the ability to even go down the field. You don't trust the offense to be able to go down the field and score, more so last year. And so even having something like that, where you can not only use it to come back into a game, but now you have the ability to close a game, because that's also something Nebraska didn't have before. You think about it at the Iowa game, there at the end, right? There's plenty of time left, but there's no game plan in terms of, with the consistency of the quarterback to know what plays are going to work and what not. So it ends up to, an interception being thrown because the ability there to move the ball down the field to even get it 20 yards into field goal range, it was just, they felt they had to pass, every single down. Now that there's going to be a more of a balance there, they can use the run game in these quick, even drive situations too. So I think the overall offense right now, again, I said this in the previous streams before, is just last year what we saw was a patchwork version of what the offense is supposed to look like. They threw the ball a lot this one, but this year's team has the personnel to be more of the offense that they want to look like. Whereas last year, that what we got, sorry, my dog's barking, he's distracting me. What we got last year was just a variation based on the injuries of what they had, personnel wise. So a lot of interesting wrinkles that this offense can take this year that I don't think people realize. Sorry if my dogs are bleeding through.
That's
I
all
just had
right.
to yell at him real quick.
It's faint, but
I have
we
a
can
German
hear him.
Shepherd. He's so loud.
It reminds me
Oh,
of something actually I mentioned this morning during our morning show. Everybody join us, Wake Up College Football. It's over on the main channel at 8 a.m. in the morning. But I was mentioning this to everyone because as we were coming on, I play some music. I've got a full screen graphic on there. There is a dog in the neighborhood. And it's a good thing that the dog is not like next door or across the street. It must be like 2 streets away. But every morning at almost exactly the same time, you just hear like a machine gun, the dog go, and it doesn't stop for like 10 minutes. And I'm
brutal.
thinking, it doesn't bother me because I can faintly hear it. But if
Yeah.
it was like next door, I
I
couldn't put up with it.
My problem is I have ADHD, so like any noise that's external, like I'm focusing on it. I completely lose anything that was in my noggin before that. So any distractions like that, I'm like, keep this dog shut up while I'm in there. But it's a
It,
German Shepherd; he doesn't know how to shut up.
and then speaking of dogs' behavior, this was just the other night as well. I hear this, it's really nice here. I got the windows wide open all over the place, and somebody's walking their dog, and I keep hearing the dog barking, and then I hear the owner just telling him to shut up, shut up, shut up.
Yep.
And I look outside, and this owner's walking the dog. He'd walk about 10 feet. The dog's just barking, barking, barking. Then he's getting on his knees and he's like in the dog's face, telling him to shut up. The dog only shuts up long enough for the owner to say to shut up.
Shut
But
up.
then as soon as the owner gets it, he starts.
That sounds
And
exhausting.
my son's a dog trainer, and he would
Mhm.
just be laughing at that, just howling. Like he says this all the time. He says that his job is to train the owner as much as
Yes.
training the dog,
Yep.
training the owner, and then also that people, and I never thought of this much, but it makes sense that we treat dogs like they're people. Like we
Yeah.
think of them as people, and so we try to
Anthropomorphism.
reason with them. We try to, and they're animals. They're
Yep.
not. That's like my son likes to say, and I probably pissed a few people off or probably ruined their day this morning when I was talking about all this because my son will say, people think their dogs love them, and I hate to say it, but your dog doesn't love you. Your dog's incapable of loving you. Your dog just responds because you feed them, you take care of them. They truly don't love you.
And one of the things that makes people do it's called anthropomorphism, right? And that's where they literally connect the human emotions with animals. That's why you see these psychos that go out and like that one guy who flew like 13 years out to grizzly bears and like was on an island would live with them for 6 months, thought they were homies, and then went that 13th year and never came back. It's like they turned on him real quick. It's like they don't think like us, man. And I think my dog loves me. I'm gonna make myself feel better about that. But I do think that a dog does innately connect with
Yeah.
their person on a different level. And because they are very intuitive with emotions and feelings, So whatever that connection is, there's something that they pick up on. But yeah, is in terms of like loving, like like in the way we do, it's not
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and we'll get back to Nebraska football, folks. But I just got to say one other thing because what you said brought to mind my son's dog. So I'm separated from my son now. I was there, down the street up until about a little less than 2 years ago. But I cannot see his dog for 6 months, 9 months, and his dog knows me, and his dog listens to me. His
Mhm.
dog takes instruction from me. Like I've stayed at my son's house overnight, and the dog stays in a crate when everybody leaves. And I've been there by myself, and my son has told me, just tell him to get in his crate. He'll listen to you. And I said something to him one time, like, why does the dog listen to me? And he said, well, he's obviously he's familiar with you. But number two, he said he senses that you're like connected to me. Like he probably
Yeah.
senses that, like, even though I'm his master, that actually you're like in some way a charge of me. And he
Yeah.
just senses that who's in charge kind of
Yeah.
thing.
It's like they can identify like pack leaders, right? Because they have that pack mentality. That's
Yeah.
like German Shepherds are like one owner dogs because they typically see you as like their pack leader, and they won't respond the same to anybody else. They won't listen to other people. They really challenge other people more so. So yeah, I love them though. I'm a dog lover through and through. I couldn't live without them.
Yeah.
So
They are
I'm
cool.
they're amazing. But um couple my dog loves you, liar. Yeah, I'm right. I'm with you, Jose. I'm with you on that. Um Eddie's question here, just real quick, where will Umanmielen play, D-line jack or regular linebacker? So with this, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out now with um Chief Borders gone. So we'll see just how that plays out. But I think he's going to be I see him as more of a kind of a D line potentially, but I think these guys at linebacker and jack and D line are going to be rotating in and out so much that I think he's going to be everywhere. I think they're going to rotate some of these, they're going to rotate some of these ends over to linebackers, some of these linebackers over to end, even guys like Stephon Thompson who can take advantage of his speed rush off the edge. And so I think it's going to be a combination, but I think a lot of the times we might see him on the D line personally. So and then yeah.
Folks, we'll keep taking the comments and questions. The super chat's available as well. We appreciate the support here at the Voice of College Football. If you want to go this route, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, those links are in the description section. And the plus there is that it's just a more effective way to support the Voice of College Football. Wink, wink, just understand YouTube takes their cut. Just please put something connected to Nebraska or the Nebraska show. So we would appreciate that. It's also a big recruiting weekend, and
Yes.
players that are targets now got a chance to experience, to a certain extent, the Memorial Stadium atmosphere.
Yeah. And this one, first, well, I say first off, I forgot to do this to the middle of the stream. I did after the spring game, but to anybody who was affected by the tornadoes out there and stuff like that, thoughts out to everybody out there who was affected. In that, they got, Barstool Sports has the Husker Strong shirts where all the net proceeds go to the disaster relief out there. So, but just seeing the 60,000 fans out there for a early spring game kickoff at the day after that happened. I think that was very, very telling. And I think a lot of these, recruits also could see that. And fan support is something that recruits mention, pretty often. But, some of the guys that we had on campus that were some of our bigger targets, I think Cortez Mills was one of the guys, he's a top receiver target. I think he was one of those guys that really was the most complimentary of everything, because he talked about fans showing love, like they knew who he was, and that was a good feeling to him. Like they recognized him, they knew who he was. He said he didn't expect the offense to kind of air it out like that. And I did think they wanted to put the pass game on showcase out there, because you can see more from that as opposed to the run game against a defensive front that's not your normal defensive front. He also said the connection with Dylan, like him and Dylan are locked in. He said Dylan checks up on him every single day. And he thinks, Dylan's a future first rounder. He likes the deep aspect of the offense. But one of the big things here is this is coming from, last year and how Matt Rule likes to operate versus previous coaches, where if you come in, it doesn't matter what class you are, if you're a freshman, whether you're a true freshman, redshirt freshman, any of that, if you are the guy, you're going to play. if you buy into what the coaches want, they think you're ready, you're going to play, and you're going, you have a potential to play a lot on this team, at a very young age, and a very, at an underclassman. And so he really likes seeing that because it gives him the opportunity to come in and play immediately. And, some of these guys want to do that. Some of these guys want to come in and play immediately. So, um, and I think the last thing that he mentioned that is very, very important to the staff that I mentioned a lot is just the camaraderie and the family atmosphere. He felt like, um, they really wanted to make a conscious effort in building a relationship with his family as well as him. But, he said that they were treated like they were on the visit, as opposed to him being on the visit, just with how well they were treated. So Cortez Mills, had a lot of complimentary things to say. Michael Terry, who's the number one athlete in Texas and probably going to have to fight off the Longhorns for him. But he said the city showed him a lot of love. Super big things coming in the future. He likes the staff, the educational aspect of what Nebraska has to offer for him. And he just thinks that Matt Rule's got everything trending in the right direction. Nebraska's trending in the right direction. And he said said the connections with former players that were out there and stuff like that and their families were, the way he put it, unbelievable. So, they see him as a dominant pass catcher in the offense because we know he plays a myriad of positions. He plays 5 different positions all over the field. He be a quarterback, running back, whatever you need him to do. So they see him as a wide receiver in the future if he does ultimately end up coming here. But more often than not, from what I'm reading and what I was going through what the visitors had to say, it's a lot of fan support and a lot of just how this team is, I guess, interacting with each other and how close and how tight knit these guys are. And that's one of the aspects that Matt Rule really wanted to work on is these guys being a family and being brothers, because that's going to make them play better on the field, trusting the guy next to you. I know people don't like to say this. It's not battle. I understand, but trusting the guy next to you in battle, like when you're in that dogfight in the fourth quarter, trusting the guy next to you to make the play. And, so yeah, it's just a lot of good and a lot of, it doesn't sound like a lot of this is the old cliche. I had a really good trip. Even one of the recruits talked about the facilities being amazing and the fact that they have a focus on recovery. And he specifically mentioned recovery because Nebraska has probably the best recovery facility now to help these guys rehab from injuries, which, as we know, we really need that to rehab from these injuries. One of the guys said it was the best game he's ever been to, regular season or, spring game. And then another guy said it was unbelievable, the turnout. Like this, the turnout was something he didn't expect. And he's like, he knew the fan support was big, but he didn't expect that big of a turnout. So overall, it just feels like these guys are really, really connecting with this staff, connecting with the players. Cortez Mills mentioned that him and Corey Barney are from the same area. So a lot of connections, a lot of ties here that these coaches try to, get these connections so they have a better chance at landing some of these guys. So a lot of good coming from the recruits. And it's more of a reason why they put the passing game on display. So some of these recruits can come in and see, that operation and how this offense is supposed to look.
I am running through the comments that have come in to the channel this week, looking for anything there. Of course, we posted a video where we did that comparison that Justin brought up between Deion Sanders and Matt Rule, their approaches. Yes. People have some lively comments about that. And again, we'll take your comments and questions about anything concerning the Huskers, but mostly concerning the spring game in particular. Is there any intel out there, Justin, concerning, as Jose is asking about, Maverick and Noonan?
So it doesn't right now. There's a lot of things close to the vest, so I'm not sure about his recovery thus far. But I do know that a lot of the guys that are injured, they are speaking about a lot of these guys are at the end or after the end of their kind of recovery process, and so they're going to be, just holding these guys out a little bit and sparing with them because they don't want to rush them back or anything like that. But Maverick Noonan, nothing about that I know of yet, but I'll try to get that for you if I can find anything on it for sure. Just nothing I've heard about that they brought up specifically. A couple of injuries though that were during the spring game. Demetrius Bell, very very excited for Demetrius Bell. Was supposed to be explosive playmaker on this team. He went down. He's going to be out for the season. And then Bly Hill, the guy, when I did my top 5 spring players, I was the most excited for. Bly Hill was my first guy. And Bly Hill went down with a dislocated knee. Luckily, it looked bad. I mean, that hurts. But what I'm saying is it looked like when you see a guy just laying on the ground, non-contact, just in pain, you usually, holding his knee, you usually think the worst. But he's only out 4 to 8 weeks, according to what Vincent Shavers said. He said 4 to 6, then he said 6 to 8. So Vincent Shavers kind of confirmed that. So he will be okay. He'll be back. So that means Malcolm Hartzog can probably stay at safety. And hopefully Bly Hill's recovery comes quick enough to where he can slide in the cornerback 2 spot in time for the season. But I think with the progress he's made over the spring and how much the staff has talked about him and likes him, I think he'll get it when he's ready.
And Justin, to Fongwei's point, Matt Rule said after the game during his post-game comments, Thomas Fidone, in regards to, okay, here's a guy that has all the talent in the world, and here's a guy who it's just good to see him on the field, and now being able to cover a full year in which he can go through a season, go through the winter workouts, spring, and see where he can finally get into a rhythm because he's able to, get just his body at the right place where it needs to be, but also his mind in the right place with the offense and being comfortable with everything because he's actually out there for an extended period of time now. And he looks primed to have a big season.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Fidone is going to be a stud this season. Like he was one of the biggest parts of our pass game last season, as we went over in the wide receiver. We were talking about the wide receiver course from last year, but this year, I just think with the way that they're going to use the tight ends, especially since they're going to be moving them all over the place, I think that's also going to be something this year that we're going to see that we didn't see last year. And I think he's going to have the ability to play at a lot of different places. They may shift him out wide sometimes. They may put him in the backfield sometimes. So I think what we're going to see from the tight ends, I think they want to put a real big emphasis on them. And Fidone is of course going to lead that charge. And he looks fantastic. He really has worked on, because his offensive game, has always been, his strength. He's always been a super athletic guy, great hands. He struggled a little bit with his hands last year. But typically sure-handed and, a guy that can go up and get contested catches. And that's why he was such a big part of the offense last year. And he's another guy that's another year seasoned in this, and he's one of our bigger targets. So he's definitely going to be a guy that we go to in the red zone a lot, and just in general, third down, kind of one of those type of guys. But Fidone is a do-it-all tight end that is going to really shine this year, even more so than last year, because he was handicapped in that offense. Of course, you can only put up so many numbers when your offense is like that. So yeah, a lot of good coming from that tight end room in general. Borkacher, went out there, had a couple catches. Like these guys, the tight end room as a whole looks good. And I think a part of it has to do with the fact that they have a specific coach. Marcus Satterfield is able to go in there and actually work with the tight ends now, as opposed to having to juggle quarterbacks, tight ends, and offensive coordinator. Now he's Glenn Thomas as a co-OC. And so that really does help these guys be able to develop, the tight end room, the quarterback room a lot more.
About half of you are watching us on Twitter, X, right now. So just keep in mind, that's great. We appreciate you being here. That's one of the reasons why We do that on a fairly regular basis, but I got to say, it's not necessarily in the forefront of my brain every time I set up the show every week to throw it on X or throw it on Twitter. But you can count on us being on YouTube live every Tuesday at 7 Eastern and 6 Central. And then you get the added bonus of jumping into the chat. You form relationships. You're able to go back and forth with everyone in the chat. So that's the big advantage there. So if you're listening on Twitter, of course, join us here on YouTube, where it's just that much more fun.
Yep. And just Fongways and Dion, their conversation. So Vegas had at 7.5 as the win total. So yeah, 7.5, but I think that's more than doable with that early slate of games. And then they talk about realistically, great QB, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, 7.5 was I think I have Nebraska pegged at eight wins next year. And some of the bad, we did see some of the bad in the spring game, of course. Alvano, somebody I really wanted to see get out there and do well, because he is, one of the best talented kickers we've had in a long time. And this is coming from a university that has produced a lot of good kickers in the NFL, especially. And so last year just was very hit or miss, struggled a lot. So I was hoping this year maybe he would come out and just kind of, have that extra year of experience. But he comes out, he misses a 32-yarder, misses a 43-yarder, but then comes back and makes a 40-yarder. So with him, it's going to be about consistency, and it'll be interesting to see if they bring in anybody, or if they. But I think hopefully that they'll stick with Alvano, get it right, because his leg is there. It's just I feel like it's mental right now. I feel like he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to go out there and perform, and we've talked about before the yips. They could talk about it in baseball a lot, the yips. When you get out there and you're overthinking things, and it just causes you're thinking about the mistakes that you've made. And so it causes you to make those same mistakes. That's how it's going to work. If you're visualizing mistakes, you're going to make mistakes. So, yeah, hopefully Alvano can get it, going. The special teams just left a lot to be desired. The defense, people are going to talk about the defense, but the spring game is no indication of what our defense is going to look like. Let's be honest. There is they can't really, you don't really want to tackle low, especially because you don't want to go for players' knees. You don't want to tackle them too hard. You can't sack the quarterback. And then also just a lot of our guys weren't out there. And so, the play column was vanilla. It's one of those things where it's like the spring game typically showcases an offense, and typically can, it's your defense is typically going to come out on the losing end of a spring game unless you're Iowa. So, they're the ones that have the defense winning the day there. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like they struggled in areas that we expected them to struggle, but having Alvano out there and just not being able to, because you're going to need those points. You can't be chasing points the whole time. So we're going to need to be able to get threes here and there, because with how many one-score losses we have, we can expect the next step to be some one-score wins. And so with one-score wins, you need to make field goals. You need to get the points when you get the ball down the field and drive down the field, because one of the things Raiola was really good at, and if, people look at the drives and stuff, Raiola is really good at finishing drives. He not only led, the offense down the field, he was able to finish a lot of those drives. And some of the ones he didn't, at least got into field goal range, right? And those are the things that we're going to need, is to take some of the pressure off of his back and be able to get, when he gets down the field, get those points. And so hopefully Alvano can get that figured out and really try to, clear his mind and figure out what's going on, maybe with his mechanics or just, in general, because like I said, he's 5 for 5. He went 5 for 5 in the state championship game in Nebraska and kicked a 50-something yarder to win the state championship at the buzzer. So
I'm going to hit you with the tough one, just because it is difficult to get intel about anything out of spring, but especially injuries. But just in case, with all of your fact finding and digging, so you mentioned Bell and Hill, obviously, unfortunately, they get hurt during the spring game. And then you mentioned a lot of players, especially in defense, that didn't show up, didn't play for precautionary reasons. But is there any reason that you've picked up to be concerned about any of those injuries lasting into August?
No, a lot of the defensive holdouts were just, we had like Ty Robinson, some of our guys, Nash Hutmacher, some of those guys that are Ramir Johnson, right? Ramir Johnson's healed. Ramir Johnson's ready to go, but they held him out because they didn't want to rush him back. But some of these other guys, they just kind of have because they know what Nash Hutmacher is. We know what Ty Robinson is. They are bought into this program. They don't need the experience. They wanted to get some of these other guys experience. So there was a little bit of that as well. Also intertwined with you have your Malachi Colemans and stuff like that who were a little bit banged up, but are nearing or even after their recovery, and they just are just being cautious and getting these younger guys rotated through an experience because we were able to get, we even had, because the previous live when I was going over what our running back coach had to say about the running back room, and he had mentioned Maurice Mazuka, brother of Micah Mazuka, the lineman we got from Florida. And, he had talked about him being a guy that like, hey, he's maybe not a scholarship guy, but if you need him to finish a game, he's the type that can do it. He plays the right way. He plays hard. He does everything the right way. Even he got to come out there and show, and he had a few good runs. Maurice Mazuka had a few good runs out there. So it's one of those guys they were trying to get these rotations through. And I think they've learned from last year that really it's pertinent that they try to get these guys as much experience as they can, the young guys especially, because you never know when your name's going to be called.
This is the spot to be, folks. Every Tuesday to talk Huskers with Justin and myself, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Get on over to the Big Ten Show. It's right here on YouTube. You got Justin, you got Sonny, and what's going on over there this week?
So this week we are trying to iron out the Nebraska program overview. So we're working on getting a date to record that, and we'll be flipping it out sometime this coming. Well, hopefully this week. We want to try to get it out this week. So slide on over there. We'll get that up for you ASAP, and get you a little bit more knowledge even into the Nebraska. We're going to have another Nebraska reporter on too, so it's not me just giving my take because you already hear that enough here. So, if y'all want to check that out over there.
Now, if I was selfish, I would say I wouldn't want anyone to break our record that we set in terms of your 13,000 video or whatever it is.
15K now. It's at
Okay.
15,000 views.
But I want the channel just to blow up and keep going. So go ahead and break the record. Any of the greats out there say, go ahead and break my record. Want to see it get broken. So we'll keep it going from there.
If y'all don't know what he's talking about, he came onto our channel and now set the view record at 15K. So he set the bar pretty high.
That was the thumbnail. I'm convinced.
Yeah. Nah, it's Mark's expert knowledge. Come on.
No, it was a great discussion. Enjoyed it. Sonny and Justin doing a bang up job there on the Big Ten Show.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And just one thing too, about the spring game, I just thought of this because you were asking about the ratio. It was, the game was actually 60 passing attempts to 37 rushing attempts. So right on that kind of 60-40 line. But like I said, they might have showcased the pass a little bit more, but we'll see. We'll see how that works. But I think that's ultimately kind of what it's going to work out to.
So folks, also keep in mind as you come on in through the hour that if you miss something, you don't have to miss it. That just rewind the show, watch what you missed. And I'm not going to scold you for not being here on time, but next week, try to make it on time. 7 Eastern, 6 Central. And if you belong to whether it's your Twitter account, Facebook groups, anything out there that could help us, you are our grassroots support for this channel. So there are people that have no idea, can you believe it, have no idea who Justin is, have no idea that the voice of college football exists. So get on out there and let people know that we talk Nebraska football. And of course, it's only going to get more and more important as we steamroll through the rest of the summer. We'll have some great topics. What we'll look at, among a ton of other things throughout the summer, is we will take at least the best opponents, maybe all the Big Ten opponents, and then somebody from Colorado as well, bring on some media guests during the summer to do an early summer preview of the matchup. And then, of course, game week, we'll do the same thing throughout the Big Ten season.
Yep. And Jose here, there's been some questions too about some of these transfers potentially coming in. I don't know if Cormani McLean is a target. Rule does like to build, go after guys that he's kind of already built a connection with, and or somebody in the staff has a connection with that leaves them more likely to kind of be able to land somebody like that. But I don't, a Wake Forest cornerback went in the portal today. So we might need to potentially go after a corner, a different corner to kind of, be a little bit more likely to maybe join in, with Jamal Banks being on the team. But, really just need to get some depth in that cornerback room just in case there's any issues with potentially Bly Hill. But I don't think it's necessary that they have to get one, but I think it's something they might take a look at for sure. And one more thing too that I wanted to mention. By the way, that 37 rush attempts, lowest rushing attempts ever in a spring game. Closest was 2017 with 40 attempts. So the third down percentage, again, they want to work on that in terms of getting the defense off the field on third down. That was last year, that was about 37%, which puts them about 49th. And the top teams, are in the 25 to 28%, and they're in the top 25. The top 25 rounds out probably about 31% eventually. Nebraska was 42% converted third downs defensively the year prior. And they actually last year completed on third and long or third and beyond 10. They actually converted at a 31% rate, which is extremely high for third and long and not being able to get your defense off the field. So that's something they wanted to work on. But overall 6 for 17 in the game. Again, not a ton to take away from that, but 35% for what it's worth. And so that's going to be a focus this year. So that's something to pay attention to. And just so people understand that year over year has gotten better. 42% in the last 3 games could have something, all to do with the injuries and stuff like that, or just the fact that in those games there wasn't a lot of offense and there wasn't a lot of possessions. So they were more heavily weighted at the fact that, if you're 1 for, 4, or if they're 2 for 4, let's say that's already 50% right there, but you're playing a team like Iowa where you only have 4 possessions each, so that little stuff like that factor into it. But that is a focus, and they did have it about 35%. I just wanted to figure that up just to see where they were at, because that's something they talked about last week.
So the rough math there, because that may not sound like a huge deal, being in the, what did you say, 37% on third down defense?
Yeah, that's
37%, and the best teams in the country are 25 to 28%, something like that. And they had a great defensive showing for the most part last year. If you look at box scores, if you're into numbers, there are usually 12 to 15 third down conversion situations. That might be a little heavy, but somewhere in the 12 range is pretty average if you look at a box score. So over the course of a season of 12, hopefully 13 games, you're looking at 160, 170 third down conversion situations. And if you can improve by close to 10%, then you're getting off the field 16, 18 more times during the course of the season. And then when you bring up that 31% on third and long, I got to think that those best teams that are at 25, 28% on third and long, they're probably 10%.
Yeah, it's probably, I should probably check that one too, just to see where that's at. But yeah, that's a crazy number. And a lot of, let's look at the Colorado game last year, because a lot of Colorado fans want to bring that up. But let's look at that game last year. That is a prime example of why your defense needs to get off of the field on third down. But that's also a prime example of why your offense needs to sustain drives. But last year, the defense not being able to get off the field, and they were actually able to get off the field a lot in that first half. But then the second half comes around and they wear down, because now the other team's sustaining drives because you can't get the defense off the field, and then your offense isn't sustaining drives as well. And then that makes matters worse too. So there's the potential there that the offense did play a factor in that by putting the defense back up against the wall a lot. But Matt Rule has also said that this was something that he saw as an issue. So while that may be a little bit of the case, maybe not fully in the defense, as good as it is and as good as it was, it still needs to get better at forcing turnovers and getting off the field on third down. So, those are the two things that, even though it's a really good defense, it's not a perfect defense. So,
all right, folks, unless you've got anything else, Justin, unless you've got anything else, we can call it a night.
yeah, I have some stuff that I'll probably have coming up in my next video. So just stay tuned for that. Anything that I didn't touch on today, I'll touch on in my next video for sure.
And once again, it's Justin right here, and it's Justin over on the Big Ten Show right here on YouTube. We appreciate everyone stopping by. Catch what you missed. Just rewind the video, and also bring a friend or two or 50 with you next Tuesday, and we'll do it all over again, talking Nebraska football. Appreciate you all stopping by, being here. Lock in. Please like the video on your way out. Subscribe here at the Voice of College Football, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Peace.